I was halfway through a perfectly mundane afternoon when my phone buzzed with a notification that made my blood run cold. The screen lit up with a name I'd never hesitate to answer, Mom. But instead of the usual heart emojis or short reminders to call her back, the preview showed words that didn't match her gentle, familiar tone. My heart hammered in my chest before I even fully read it. I could only catch fragments. I can't, needed to warn, something was wrong, I could feel it in my bones. My stomach lurched, dread sinking into every corner of my mind. This was not my mother's typical text, and that terrified me more than anything. I glanced around my tiny studio apartment, searching for a trace of normalcy to ground me before I opened the message. Everything looked the same, a messy desk scattered with old coffee cups, laundry piled near the door, half-finished art projects pinned to my corkboard. Yet the atmosphere felt different, charged with tension. My heart raced, and I struggled to draw a steady breath. With a trembling finger, I swiped the lock screen and tapped on the text conversation. There it was, in black and white. Mom, 8 minutes ago. I can't stay here. They're watching me. I needed to warn you. They might come for you next. Don't trust the police. Don't trust anyone. I'm sorry I never told you the truth about everything. It's complicated. Be safe. My mother was not one for dramatics. She was a kind, soft-spoken woman who spent her days reading historical novels, tending to her beloved rose garden, and volunteering at the local animal shelter. Messages from her phone typically included photos of her new floral arrangements or a quick note about how the neighbors were doing. So seeing these words, so ominous and frantic, shattered every sense of comfort I'd ever had. Mom? I whispered to the empty room, as if she could answer me through the phone. My thumb hovered over the screen, and I hammered out a response. Mom, what's going on? Where are you? The message hovered there for a moment as though it refused to send. Finally, the chat bubble slid up. I waited. The seconds stretched to minutes. No reply. I scrolled up, scanning our prior texts, short greetings, a few grocery suggestions, pictures of my cat, nothing that hinted at this kind of danger. My mind spiraled with questions. Who was they? Why was she telling me not to trust the police? And why had she never told me something so monumental before? The tension grew unbearable, so I dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. I tried 4 times, pacing the limited floor space, cursing under my breath. Each attempt ended the same way. After the 4th try, I sank into my tattered armchair, phone clenched in my sweaty palm. My eyes landed on the clock. 4:36 p.m. The day felt darker than it should have, as though the sun itself sensed I was on the brink of an unfolding nightmare. I texted her again, something along the lines of, "Please call me, I'm scared," but the message delivered and stayed unread. Silence. Agony. My mind conjured images of her alone, hiding in some unfamiliar room, phone shaking in her hands, scanning every shadow. Or worse, maybe someone else was reading my messages, deciding whether to respond. An onslaught of memories washed over me, my mother in the kitchen, humming softly as she stirred spaghetti sauce, her hands dusty with flour on Christmas morning, her meltdown when my childhood cat got sick. She was the gentlest soul I knew, never missing an opportunity to help someone else. She'd visited me just last week, looking perfectly normal, maybe a bit tired, but still cheerful. I would never have suspected something like this lurked beneath the surface. That text changed everything. The life I'd taken for granted was abruptly thrown into chaos. My first impulse was to call the police. But I froze, recalling the text, "Don't trust the police." It sounded paranoid, but her words rattled me enough to hold off. My father died when I was 11, so there was nobody else in the immediate family to turn to. Extended relatives were scattered across the country, barely in contact with us. Friends? I wasn't sure who to confide in. My best friend, Jeremy, might have some ideas, but I worried about drawing him into this. If my mother's warning was genuine, I didn't want to put him in danger, too. Still, I needed someone to talk me down from the ledge. After a long moment of indecision, I grabbed my keys and left my cramped apartment. My car was parked behind the building, a rundown Honda with peeling paint that I fondly referred to as old reliable. The spring air felt too crisp, slicing through my light sweater, but the chill shocked me into some semblance of focus. I drove to Jeremy's place on autopilot, mind spinning with 1,000 half-formed worries. Jeremy lived in a renovated loft above a bakery. The smell of fresh bread usually made my mouth water, but this time I hurried past, ignoring the delicious aroma. I pounded on his door, and he opened it, hair matted, wearing sweats and a faded band t-shirt. "What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, eyebrows knitting in concern. I shoved my phone into his hands. Read this, I croaked. He scanned the text, eyes widening. Is this from your mom? Holy, what the hell is going on? I have no idea, I said, voice shaking. She's not answering calls. No replies. I'm scared, Jer. He ushered me inside, locking the door behind us. His loft was cluttered with vinyl records, random souvenirs from his travels, and a half-eaten pizza on the coffee table. He guided me to a couch that had seen better days, then sat beside me. All right, he began, trying to sound calm. Has your mom ever said anything like this before? Any hints? She's always been so normal. I shook my head vigorously. Never. She hates conflict, hates drama. This is not her style. Something's happened. Jeremy exhaled sharply. She said not to trust the cops. That's a heavy claim. Look, maybe she just doesn't trust the local police department? People have weird reasons sometimes, corruption, rumors. But you know your mom. If she's worried about them specifically, maybe she has a reason. Have you called them anyway? Maybe they know something. I swallowed hard, remembering her warning. I haven't. I'm too freaked out. Besides, if it's nothing, I'll just stir up trouble for no reason. But if it's real, I don't want to tip off whoever she's talking about. She might be in danger. Jeremy nodded, drumming his fingers on the couch cushion. Let's think logically. Where does she normally hang out? Her house, obviously. The library? The animal shelter? The thought jolted me. Her house. I should go check if she's there or if something looks off. Yeah, that's probably the best place to start, Jeremy agreed. I'll come with you. Safety in numbers, right? My shoulders slumped in relief. I hadn't even realized how badly I wanted someone by my side. Thanks, I whispered. You're a good friend. We left his loft, slid into my Honda, and took the familiar route to my mother's place on the outskirts of town. The drive felt surreal, as though some invisible presence were trailing behind us. With every red light, I found myself anxiously scanning my rearview mirror, half expecting to see a suspicious car or a figure in the back seat. Nothing. Just the usual traffic. Mom's place was a cozy ranch-style house surrounded by rose bushes. She used to joke that she'd have an entire rose nursery someday. The porch light was off when we arrived, which was odd because she usually left it on once dusk approached. The entire street was quiet, except for an old man watering his lawn 2 doors down. Jeremy and I exited the car, exchanging a worried glance before approaching the front door. My gut twisted. Something felt deeply wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint what. I tried the doorknob. Locked, as expected. I knocked softly. Mom? Are you in there? I called. No response. I pounded harder, fear rising in my throat. Still nothing. Check around the back, Jeremy suggested. We circled the house, stepping over sprinklers and her meticulously maintained flower beds. The back door was locked, but I had a spare key. As soon as the door creaked open, a wave of stale air greeted us. The lights were off inside, the only illumination coming from the faint glow of a neighbor's backyard spotlight. Mom? I called again, flicking the switch. The living room lamp sputtered to life, casting a soft glow over the plush sofa and the stack of magazines on the coffee table. Everything looked normal, except for a single cushion knocked onto the floor, as though someone had stood up hastily. We checked the kitchen, empty. The kettle still rested on the stovetop. I touched the side, it was cold. Moving down the hallway, I passed framed photos of us at various stages. Me as a baby in her arms, me at a high school graduation, the two of us at a lake on vacation. Each image seemed to mock me with memories of simpler times. Her bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open. The bed was unmade, as if she'd left in a hurry. A dresser drawer was partially pulled out, a few items of clothing fallen to the floor. My eyes caught something unusual on the nightstand, a small, shiny business card that didn't match her style. I picked it up, scanning the logo. It was for a private security agency. And on the back, scrawled in what looked like my mother's handwriting, were the words, Code, Martin Street. Jeremy, I whispered, beckoning him over. Look at this. He frowned at the card. Why would she have a security firm's card lying around? She never mentioned anything like that. I shrugged, turning it over in my hands. I have no idea. But Code, Martin Street. That's the old rundown industrial area across town, right? Jeremy's eyebrows shot up. Yeah, near the old textile factories. No one's worked there in years. My heart thudded. I remembered that place vaguely. Mom would sometimes mention it was part of my grandparents' memory, a place they used to work in their youth. But that was decades ago. Why would she have a code referencing it now? We scoured the rest of the house, rummaging for clues. Her purse was gone, which might mean she left voluntarily, but then again, a lot of personal items were still here, including her phone charger. Mom never went anywhere without her phone charger. That realization sank in, adding to my dread. Maybe her phone was dying. Maybe that's why she didn't reply. In the living room, I noticed something half hidden under the sofa, a piece of crumpled paper. I grabbed it, carefully unfolding it. Another note, scribbled in a frantic hand. They took the files from the safe. Don't let them find you. M. My breath caught. Files? Safe? The only safe I knew about was a small box in her closet where she kept old jewelry and birth certificates. Who were they? My pulse pounded so hard I felt lightheaded. Jeremy pressed a hand to my shoulder, steadying me. Okay, so your mom's definitely in some kind of trouble. Or at least she thinks she is. We have to figure out what she's involved in. I nodded numbly. She must have left me these hints: the security card, the code, the note. It's like she wants me to investigate. The notion of my sweet, peaceful mother leading me on a clandestine hunt was almost unbelievable, yet here I was. Right. Jeremy glanced around as if expecting an intruder to burst in. But we have no idea what we're getting into. This could be dangerous as hell. I know, I said, my throat tight. But I can't just sit around and wait for her to text me back. She could be in real danger. We agreed to check the closet safe first. I dashed to her bedroom, rummaged until I found the small metal box nestled beneath a stack of sweaters. The box was open, the interior empty except for a few scattered envelopes, proof that something used to be in there but wasn't anymore. My stomach churned. This aligned with the note we found: they took the files from the safe. And apparently, Mom was chasing after whoever they were, or trying to hide from them, or both. All right, so the safe is missing documents, Jeremy murmured. That means we're definitely dealing with something big. No sign of forced entry, though, unless they were very meticulous about it. I nodded, pushing away a wave of nausea. Let's go. Martin Street might be our next stop. Or that security agency. Maybe they can tell us something. Jeremy's mouth twisted in concern. And you want to go there now? It's almost dark out. I hesitated. I don't want to wait. Every minute could matter. But you're right, it's risky. My eyes fell on the text again: they might come for you next. Don't trust the police. Don't trust anyone. A question flared in my mind. Why would Mom specifically say not to trust the police? Did she have evidence of corruption? Had she stumbled upon something that involved law enforcement? The thought made my stomach drop. We could be facing a situation where any official authority might be compromised. I steeled myself. We'll head to Martin Street. We'll be careful. Jeremy nodded, though his lips were set in a grim line. Let's do it. We left Mom's house, carefully locking up behind us, though I knew any lock was pointless if truly dangerous people were involved. The drive to Martin Street took us out of our comfortable suburbs and into a neglected industrial zone. Twilight had settled, painting the abandoned factories in eerie shadows. Faded graffiti covered the brick walls, windows were boarded up, and rusted fences lined the cracked sidewalks. A few flickering street lamps provided minimal light, giving the entire area a haunted feel. I parked near what used to be an old textile mill. The giant letters once proclaiming its name were now missing or defaced. Jeremy and I exchanged uncertain looks as we stepped out of the car into the crisp night air. Which building do we even start with? Jeremy asked, peering around at the row of shuttered facilities. I glanced at the business card in my hand, hoping for some clue. The front side just says Lombo Security Solutions with an address. Wait, maybe that's around here somewhere. I punched the address into my phone. No signal. Typical for this part of town. Let's walk around the block, see if we find anything that matches. We strolled cautiously, boots crunching broken glass. My nerves were on edge, every stray sound setting me on high alert, a cat's meow from a nearby alley, the wind rattling a loose sheet of metal. Then, in the dim glow of a street lamp, we saw it, a modest sign with an arrow pointing down a side street, reading Lombo Security, Private Office. Heart thumping, I led the way, the sign guiding us to a small building that might once have been an administrative office. A single light glowed from a window. The front door was locked, but a doorbell button hung precariously by the frame. I pressed it. A moment later, a crackling voice came through a distorted speaker. Office is closed. Come back tomorrow. We need to speak to someone right now, I said, trying to sound firm. It's urgent. Sorry, said the speaker. Working hours are. It's about Sarah McConnell, I interrupted, using Mom's full name. She's in danger. Please, we have her business card. There was a long pause. Then the door's lock clicked. Come in, the voice said reluctantly. Jeremy gave me a wary glance as we stepped inside. The reception area was small and sparsely furnished, with a flickering fluorescent light overhead. A stocky man in a short-sleeved button-down emerged from a back room, eyeing us with suspicion. He had the look of someone who'd once been in law enforcement, rigid posture, a certain wariness in his gaze. How do you know Sarah? He asked bluntly. She's my mother, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She's gone missing. She left behind this card. I handed it to him. There was also a note referencing some code about Martin Street. We found it in her house. We think it's linked to your agency somehow. The man's expression darkened. Your mother, she's... I can't believe this is happening. He pinched the bridge of his nose. I'm Hector. I was working a contract for her. My mind reeled. A contract? Doing what? Hector shot us a wary look. Sarah approached us about a month ago with concerns that someone was following her. She believed she had information that certain people wanted to keep buried. She hired me specifically for personal protection and research into her suspicions. But she didn't want to involve her family. She said it would put you in danger. My breath caught. So she was actually being threatened. Potentially, Hector said, eyes darting to the locked door behind us. She mentioned a set of documents that implicated high-ranking officials. She claimed it was linked to an incident decades ago, something hushed up. She wanted to gather enough evidence to expose them. I was gathering intel, but everything got complicated fast. I swallowed, heart pounding. That's why she said not to trust the police. Hector nodded grimly. She believed some of these officials had law enforcement in their pockets. We didn't know how high it went, so we told her to keep her head down while we built a case. But if she's missing now, he trailed off, jaw tight. I found a note saying they took files from her safe. She texted me that she had to go into hiding. Hector's expression was taut with concern. Then it's even worse than I thought. If they have those files, they'll come for anything else she might have as leverage. That includes you. He fixed me with a serious look. You need to be careful. Jeremy hovered behind me. What should we do? We can't just leave her out there alone. Hector's shoulders tensed. I'm not sure yet. She had a fallback plan, some contact or location she'd go to if things got too hot. She didn't share it with me because she was afraid it might compromise my safety. Said I'd be safer not knowing. He sighed heavily. But there might be a clue in her digital records. She gave me partial access to her personal cloud drive for certain files related to the case. I haven't checked it in a few days. He strode to a desk in the corner and booted up a computer. My heart pounded with a nauseating mix of relief and urgency. Finally, we might find a lead, something to give us direction. I stood behind him, fiddling anxiously with the zipper on my jacket. Hector typed in some credentials, then navigated to a password-protected folder labeled S. McConnell. He paused. I only have partial access, so I can't see everything. But maybe there's enough here. The folder opened, revealing a list of files. Most had cryptic names: Case Notes 1, Legiscan 2, Contacts _compromised. My mother's digital breadcrumbs. Hector clicked one labeled Emergency Info, and a document opened. If I'm gone, or if you're reading this because I can't be reached. The evidence is scattered in multiple locations. Some is in physical form, some digital. You must find all of it to understand the full truth. I've left hints in the Rose Garden, in the library archives, and one final place, my parents' abandoned cabin by the lake. Don't let them stop you. I stared at the screen, my pulse roaring in my ears. I had no idea she'd hidden evidence in so many places. And my grandparents' cabin? That place had been vacant for nearly 2 decades since they passed away. Rose Garden, library, a cabin, Jeremy murmured. Is she sending us on a scavenger hunt? Hector leaned back in his chair, face grim. More like a desperate race against whoever's after her. She must have realized she'd need multiple stashes so that if one was compromised, the others might remain safe. We needed a plan, fast. Let's split up, I said. Jeremy, you can check the library archives. Hector, Can you do more digging, see if you can track her phone or find anything else in these files? They both nodded. Jeremy was the local history buff. If there was anything hidden in the archives, he'd find it. Hector had the tools and network to handle the digital side and any potential threats. That leaves me to check the rose garden and the cabin, I continued, voice trembling with determination. Maybe I'll find more direct clues to where she's hiding. But you should be careful, Hector warned. Don't go alone to the cabin if you can avoid it. At least let me or Jeremy come with you once we're done with our parts. We don't know who else might be watching. I nodded, a lump in my throat. This was beyond terrifying. But every step I took felt like an imperative. My mother's life might depend on it. After exchanging contact information with Hector, Jeremy and I stepped back outside into the deserted street. The overhead light buzzed ominously, flickering. I rubbed my arms, realizing how cold it had gotten. You sure you'll be okay? Jeremy asked gently. I forced a small smile, though my insides were churning. No. But I have to do this. He offered to drive me back to Mom's house so I could retrieve anything else I needed. The ride was quiet, each of us lost in our own tumultuous thoughts. At her place, we parted ways. Jeremy gave me a tight hug, promising he'd call me the moment he found anything at the library. Then he drove off, taillights vanishing into the night. Now alone, I stepped back inside Mom's living room. I went straight to her beloved rose garden out back, flicking on the outdoor light. The garden was her pride and joy, dozens of rose varieties in neat rows, from bright pink to deep crimson. Tonight, the buds were closed, leaves gently rattling in the breeze. I felt a pang of sorrow imagining Mom tending them so lovingly, while being haunted by such heavy secrets. She'd mentioned leaving a hint here. I examined the soil, the planters, the small garden shed. I looked for anything unusual, a fresh patch of dirt, a hidden box. My heart pounded in my ears, every rustle of leaves making me flinch. Finally, near a trellis of white climbing roses, I noticed a small stone statue of a cherub. It had been there for as long as I could remember, but tonight, something about it caught my eye, a crease where the head met the neck. Carefully, I lifted the cherub's head. It came away, revealing a hollow space inside. My breath caught. Tucked within was a folded piece of paper. Hands shaking, I retrieved it and smoothed it out. The writing was my mother's. Rose garden clue, the culprit is older than you think. It started before you were born. Look for the Redwood file. Inside is proof linking them to multiple disappearances. The library has the Redwood record. Verify the handwriting and the stamp. Multiple disappearances? Redwood file? My stomach lurched, remembering Jeremy was already headed to the library. Thank goodness. He might find exactly what this note referenced. I snapped a photo of the paper, then carefully placed the original in my pocket. Next step, the cabin by the lake, a location from my childhood I hadn't seen in ages. A million memories rushed back, summers spent fishing off the old dock, roasted marshmallows by the fire pit, dusty furniture and squeaky floorboards. My grandparents built that cabin with their own hands, or so the story went. After they died, Mom rarely spoke of it. But apparently, she still had a key. I searched her house frantically, rummaging through drawers until I found it, labeled simply cabin in black marker. Fear bubbled in my chest as I left the house, scanning the street for any suspicious vehicles. Nothing. Still, I felt eyes on me as I slid into my car and started the engine. The drive to the lake took nearly 40 minutes, cutting through dark country roads with limited streetlights. My phone had just enough signal to let me track my route, but no more. I tried calling Mom again. Straight to voicemail. I tried calling Jeremy to see if he'd learned anything. No answer. Anxiety built with every mile. Finally, the narrow dirt path leading to the cabin appeared, flanked by towering pines. The headlights illuminated a sign so weather-worn I could barely read it, but I recognized the shape from childhood. I stopped the car at the edge of the clearing. The cabin stood in moonlit stillness, battered by time and neglect. The porch steps sagged, and the windows were caked in grime. My heart clenched at the sight of the place that once held so many warm memories now casting a foreboding aura. Clutching a flashlight, I made my way up the creaking steps, the key clenched in my trembling hand. The lock protested but eventually turned with a metallic scrape. The door swung open, and a stale, musty odor greeted me, years of dust and disuse. My flashlight beam revealed a living room with old floral furniture covered in sheets. Spider webs draped the corners. Closing the door behind me, I took a tentative step inside. The floor groaned, as if resenting my intrusion after all these years. Mom? I called softly, though I didn't really expect an answer. Still, the silence felt ominous. I began searching systematically, pulling sheets off furniture, checking drawers and cabinets. Everything felt stuck in time. In the old kitchen, I found rusted utensils, yellowed newspapers from more than 2 decades ago. Nothing that seemed relevant. Then I remembered the secret compartments. My grandfather was handy, and he'd built hidden spaces in the cabin to store valuables. My mother once showed me a small concealed panel near the fireplace, used to stash photos and keepsakes. Heart pounding, I made my way to the living area. Sure enough, a large stone fireplace dominated the room. I knelt, shining my flashlight along the mantel and the stones. One of the stones had a slight gap around it. With some effort, I pried it loose, revealing a hollow behind it. Inside, my flashlight caught the edge of a dusty leather journal. My breath caught in my throat. I slid it out, carefully opening the cover. The pages crackled. Handwritten entries, but not all in the same hand. Some looked like they belonged to my grandmother, describing everyday life at the cabin. Others were my grandfather's, referencing repairs or chores. Then, near the end, was my mother's handwriting. She must have added her own notes at some point. Flipping through, I found references to the Redwood Project, brief mentions of an official cover-up, names I didn't recognize, and sketches of a crest that looked like a stylized oak leaf. Each entry seemed more cryptic than the last. One page near the end stood out. They threaten to silence anyone who knows too much. Redwood is linked to the children's disappearances from 1978 to 1985. Officially closed the case, but hush money changed hands. They used farmland near the industrial district as a cover. The ledger proves it. My pulse thundered. Children's disappearances? This was bigger than anything I could have imagined. The Redwood file must contain the ledger. That was probably what was stolen from my mother's safe. The revelations felt dizzying. This was a deep conspiracy, spanning decades, maybe explaining why Mom was so terrified. She'd uncovered something no one wanted revealed. As I read on, a sense of impending doom pulsed through me. Then, an all-too-familiar sound shattered the silence, the creak of a floorboard behind me. I froze, the journal clutched in my hands, my heart pounding like a drum. Slowly, I turned, shining the flashlight into the darkness. A silhouette stood in the doorway, a tall figure, face obscured by darkness. My stomach lurched. Instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs locked in place. The figure moved forward, into the faint moonlight spilling through a grimy window. A man, middle-aged, with a hardened expression. He wore dark clothing, and in his hand glinted something metallic, a gun. My heart hammered so violently I thought I might faint. "Put it down," he commanded, voice low and menacing. The journal. Time seemed to slow. My thoughts raced, searching for any escape. The door behind him was my only exit. My phone was in my pocket, but I doubted I'd have time to call for help. He stepped closer. "Give me the journal," he repeated, pointing the gun. I swallowed thickly, fear choking me. This was one of the people after my mother. I raised my hands, journal in one, flashlight in the other. My pulse roared in my ears, adrenaline spiking. Desperate, I glanced to my left, saw the stone I'd pried loose. Maybe. My eyes flicked back to him. He was closing the distance. "You'll never get away with it," I managed to say, voice trembling. He smirked, a cold, vicious twist of his lips. "We already have. Now hand it over." Gathering every ounce of courage, I hurled the flashlight at his face. It struck him in the forehead, forcing him to stagger back, cursing. In that split second, I snatched the heavy stone from the mantel's edge and swung it with all my might. The impact connected with his forearm, knocking the gun from his grip. It clattered to the floor, and I kicked it away. He roared in pain and anger, lurching forward. My only advantage was the fleeting element of surprise. I sprinted for the door, the journal clutched to my chest. He lunged, fingers grazing my jacket, but I tore free, stumbling onto the porch. My foot caught on the step, sending me sprawling onto the dirt. Gasping, I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the burning pain in my knee. The man was on me in a heartbeat, tackling me to the ground. My breath exploded from my lungs. We grappled in the darkness, knees scraping gravel. I clung to the journal, terrified of losing it. But he was stronger, pressing his weight on my back. The world spun, and in my panic, I reached for anything. My hand closed around a loose rock, small but sharp. Without thinking, I twisted and raked it across his arm. He shouted, loosening his grip just enough for me to slip away. I stumbled toward my car, lungs heaving, my mind blank with terror. I fumbled with the door handle, finally jerking it open. As I slid inside, I saw him advancing with the gun again. He must have retrieved it. In a frenzy, I slammed the door and locked it, turning the ignition. Bullets shattered the rear window, glass raining over the backseat. I screamed, ducking low, tires squealing as I floored the accelerator. The car tore down the dirt path, fishtailing under the sudden burst of speed. My mind reeled, adrenaline surging. My mother's warning was real. These people were willing to kill. Tears blurred my vision as I sped away, unsure if I was being followed. I glanced at the rearview mirror, but the road was dark. No headlights. Maybe I'd lost him, or maybe he'd call reinforcements. Either way, I had to keep moving. I didn't dare drive home. Instead, I headed back toward town, heart hammering, shoulders stiff with terror. I needed somewhere safe, but the police might be compromised. Hector? Possibly. Jeremy? Possibly. But who could I truly trust now? The reality of my mother's text crashed over me like a tidal wave. She was in mortal danger, and so was I. My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me. Still driving, I pulled it out. A new message from Mom. My stomach twisted. With shaky fingers, I swiped to read it. I'm safe, for now. Don't go home. They have watchers. Meet me at the old orchard on Pine Road. Come alone. Hurry. Tears threatened to spill. Relief flooded me at the sight of her words, but fear still clung. Was it really her? Could it be a trap? My mother's message was consistent with her earlier warnings, though. And if she was truly out there, waiting for me, I couldn't abandon her. Not after everything. With trembling resolve, I changed course, heading for Pine Road. The orchard she mentioned was a place we used to visit when I was small, a family-run business that let you pick apples and peaches in late summer. Now was off-season, so the orchard would be deserted. The perfect place to meet in secret. As I drove, my thoughts churned. Should I message Hector or Jeremy, let them know I found her? But if her phone was compromised or if the orchard was under surveillance, we could risk being ambushed. Remembering the man at the cabin, I felt an ache in my bruised ribs. I decided to go alone, as the text said. When I arrived, the orchard's entrance was closed off by a chain fence. I parked on the shoulder and slipped through a gap in the fence, heart pounding in my ears. Moonlight bathed the rows of dormant apple trees, their branches twisted and bare. The night air was still. I crept carefully between the rows, the journal tucked under my arm. Every rustle of leaves made me jump. Then, in the distance, I saw a faint silhouette. A petite figure stood beneath one of the trees. I approached cautiously, pulse roaring. As I drew closer, the figure turned, and my flashlight revealed a face I recognized, my mother's. Relief and terror warred within me. She looked pale, exhausted, eyes ringed with shadows, but her expression glowed with raw emotion when she saw me. I rushed forward, nearly collapsing into her arms. She clutched me tight, her breath shuddering in my ear. "Oh, thank God," she whispered, that we owed it to the countless victims to see it through. As the SUV sped through the night, the road stretching before us, I realized my life had irrevocably changed. I was no longer just an ordinary person with an ordinary routine. Danger and uncertainty loomed around every bend. But I wasn't alone. My mother's hand gripped the wheel, and I clutched her journal, our hearts pounding in unison, linked by a desperate fight for truth. We might not have known where the next turn would lead, but we knew one thing: the only way out was forward. And so, with the weight of secrets in the backseat and the open road ahead, we raced onward, together, at last. "Mom," I choked out, tears burning. "What is happening? Are you okay? Who are these people after us? Why didn't you?" She pulled back, pressing a finger to her lips. "We can't stay here. But I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. I tried to keep you safe by hiding it all, but they found out I was close to exposing them." Her voice trembled with remorse. I swallowed hard, forcing my words out in a whisper. "We'll figure it out. I have the journal. Is that what they are after?" Mom's eyes widened. "You found Grandpa's journal?" I nodded. She pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. "That journal is everything, the missing puzzle piece. We have to get it somewhere safe." Before I could respond, branches crackled somewhere behind us. Mom stiffened, eyes darting. A low voice hissed in the darkness. We weren't alone. Instinct took over. I grabbed Mom's hand, and we dashed between the rows of trees, leaves rustling overhead. Moonlight flickered, revealing figures shifting in the shadows. I heard a curse, then the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. My heart thundered. We zigzagged through the orchard, desperately trying to lose whoever was pursuing us. My mother's breath came in ragged gasps, but she pushed on. I guided her, scanning for an exit, an opening, anything. Finally, we burst out onto an old service road behind the orchard, overshadowed by dense woods. A single car waited there, an SUV with tinted windows. Mom yanked me toward it, fumbling with the keys. She'd stashed a vehicle, presumably for her escape. We tumbled inside, slamming the doors just as gunshots cracked the silence. Bullets pinged off the metal. Mom revved the engine, and we tore off down the service road, gravel spraying in our wake. My fingers trembled, still clutching the journal. We drove without headlights, bouncing over ruts and potholes. Fear pressed on me like a physical weight. Finally, we emerged onto a main road, and Mom flicked on the lights, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. "They won't stop," she said, voice shaking. "Not until they get what they want or we expose them first." I nodded, holding back tears. "Then let's do it. Let's finish what you started." She glanced at me, exhaustion and fierce determination warring in her gaze. "You realize they'll come at us with everything they've got." My grip on the journal tightened. "They already have." A faint, sad smile flickered across her face. Then she fixed her eyes on the road. "We need to find a safe place to lay low and figure out our next move. We'll contact the only person I trust. There's someone who can help us release these documents to the public, someone outside the local police influence." A bittersweet surge of hope rushed through me. Maybe we could do it, maybe we could shine a light on these crimes, ensure that no one else would be silenced or harmed. And if this Redwood conspiracy was as massive as it seemed,